Hi, Walter.
Hey girl, how are you?
Good, good, good. Happy Wednesday.
Yes, it is a great Wednesday. Thank you. I'm so excited to be with you guys.
Well, I'm so excited that you're here for our very first episode of our YPO Speaker Series. You know, Sky High started our young professionals team about a year ago, and they have been blowing and going and really trying to get the next generation excited about stopping childhood cancer, right? Ending childhood cancer. And so we are super excited to have you as our very first guest.
That's
So
exciting.
guys out there, everybody watching, coming to you live is Walter Nusbaum. He is the president of Nusbaum Group and has over 20 years of experience in corporate coaching. Yes, he is my current corporate coach. Popular speaker. I mean, he speaks all over the country, all over the world, right, Walter?
Right?
Yes, and he is an author. So it's really exciting to have him as our first guest. So tonight, Walter is going to really weigh in on a hot topic, and that is the current economy. We all know that we don't have a crystal ball out there, and there's so many unknowns. So he's really going to talk about thriving through these challenging times. And so I think it's going to be extremely beneficial for all of you out there to watch and tune in. And so we are super excited to have you. And thank you again, Walter.
Thank you, Brittany. Thank you so much for having me. And everybody out there, man, this is going to be great. If you happen to have a pen and a piece of paper, I am known to quote books and quotes. So grab a pen and you might want to jot a few things down. This is going to be great. I got about 20 minutes and we're going to hit the ground running pretty fast. Just to let everybody know, by the way, I just love giving value to people. So if you're into the podcast world, check out the Arete Way podcast. It's Arete, the Arete Way. And I'll tell you what that means here in a few minutes, but it's a terrific little podcast I think everybody will enjoy. So, I was asked, Brittany, I was asked, what do I want to talk on? And when Kobe and I were talking, I said, man, I know what I want to talk on. I've been preparing this for 25 years, this particular topic. And what I want to talk about is I want to talk about the topic of growing through stress. This is something that is so personal to me in my own life. I mean, right now, we are without a doubt going through one of the most stressful times, maybe in our lifetime as a nation and as a world. And we've got to really be able to understand stress and what its role is in all of our lives, because it can really do a lot of damage to us if we don't see it the right way. In doing that, I want to kind of tell a biographical story. I get a question asked pretty frequently, and that is, Walter, how did you get into doing what you're doing? How did you get into executive coaching and training and speaking? And I'm going to give you the very short story, and it is that a number of years ago, I was at a very low in my life, and in every respect, relationally, financially, just my life was really at a bottom. And I was a tennis pro at a country club, and I was there for a number of years. And one of the members that was there was an owner of a professional team, and I got to know he and his family, fairly well. And one day he came up to me. And he says to me, hey, Walter, I've got 11 CEOs coming to Dallas to do an all-day meeting, and we need someone to do a 2-hour facilitation. What do you think about that? Would you like to do it? And here I am. I'm broke. I just, ended a really painful relationship. I'm a tennis pro, and so he wants me to come talk for 2 hours to a bunch of executives. And I said, about what? And he said, man, I've just known you for so long, and it just seems like you always have really interesting things to say. Just put something together. I think it's going to be terrific. And this is a guy who just believed in me. And I remember how scared I was. I did not want to humiliate myself. I didn't want to embarrass myself in front of these people. And I didn't even know what I was going to share with them. And sure enough, I went ahead, I said yes with great reluctance and fear, and it was the greatest decision I ever made in my life, because when we got done, he walked me to my car, and he said to me when we got to the car, he said, Walter, I want to ask you a question. I don't want you to take this the wrong way. He said, but what are you doing? And I said, what do you mean? He goes, look, you just had 12 executives for 2 hours, and we didn't want you to stop. He said, you need to do this for a living. I said, really? He said, Walter, you need to do this for a living. And I remember the next week I started my life coaching business. And I called it Seeds of Greatness Incorporated. And that was almost 20 years ago. And it was literally the beginning of something that I never would have believed would become what it is today. And it was one of the greatest decisions of my life. So why do I say that? I say that because when we as people can learn to lean into stress and not avoid it, great things happen. And there's a saying that I like to use. And if you guys have a pen, write it down. This is a great, great quote. And it goes like this. No stress, that's K-N-O-W, no stress, no growth, K-N-O-W. No stress, N-O, no growth. And that's a principle that I've tried to live my life by. It's a principle I've tried to help leaders to embrace. It's this idea that stress is something that is there for our good, even when it seems like things are in chaos or they are completely disrupted. And there's an author that I read several years ago that really impacted my thinking on this. His name is Nassim Taleb, and he wrote a book called Antifragile. And I want to just explain this concept very quickly to you because it highlights the one principle today I want everybody to take away today. This is the principle that's going to help all of us to really navigate these uncertain waters with greater confidence and even certainty. And what he says is basically every system exists in one of three states. They are either fragile, they are robust, or they are what he calls anti-fragile. A fragile system is a system where there's nothing but downside, and that any sort of disruption, any sort of chaos or unpredictability will do nothing but cause a fragile system harm. I want you to think about a nice wine glass. If you knock a wine glass over on the ground, there is nothing but downside. That thing is going to break because it has very low levels of resilience to stress and disruption. And there are things in life that are by nature fragile. I want you to think about computer code. It doesn't take much for somebody to disrupt a computer software program by hacking into it and just changing one line or even one piece of data in the code. So number one, as a leader, you've got to be able to identify what are fragile things and what do I need to do to make sure that I'm protecting them. Number two, you've got robust systems. These are systems that can tolerate much greater disruption and stress, but still they don't get better. They just don't break down as easily. So imagine knocking over a plastic cup in your house. It just bounces off the floor. It's robust. It's resilient. A car engine can take a lot of pressure, a lot of heat. It's resilient. It's robust. These are systems that have more tolerance built into them, so they can manage the shocks of life. Here's the problem. The problem is most people stop as the goal of trying to become more resilient and robust. They're trying to build better shock absorbers in their company or shock absorbers in their life so that they can be more resilient to stress. But there's another system that you have to be aware of and you have to respect it. And that system is known as an anti-fragile system. And an anti-fragile system is a system that grows through stress and requires stress for it to grow, right? And if you don't stress it, if you treat an anti-fragile system like a fragile system, you cripple the system so that now, when that event occurs, that disruption occurs, the anti-fragile system now is incapable of being able to survive something that it should have been far capable of surviving. I want you to let me give you a few examples of anti-fragile systems. One of them is what's known as it's our immune system. We all know what happens if a parent always protects their child and never ever wants their child to get sick. And they're always making sure that they're not going outside and getting cold. They're always putting hand sanitizer on their hands, and they're not letting them play with kids all the time. We know what's happening. Their immune system is becoming more fragile. And today we know this more than ever. One of the really great threats that comes from social distancing for too long is you end up becoming more susceptible to sickness in the long run if you do this for too long, because we need each other. We have to be around each other. You have to shake hands. You have to be in groups, because it's the exchange of germs and bacteria that keeps our immune system strong. Epidemiologists know this. So there's a period of time we can do this, but at some point, we're going to make ourselves more and more susceptible to becoming sick. There's an entire field of study known as exercise immunology. And exercise immunology is that you can strengthen your immune system through exercise. And that people we know who run and who exercise at a moderate level, and what moderate is considered up to 150 minutes a week, these people have the capacity to maximize their immune systems. This is called exercise immunology, and it's one way of strengthening your immune system. A person who never exercises puts their immune system at a place of vulnerability so that they more easily can get sick, they can get diseases and these sorts of things. So it's really, really important to think about anti-fragile systems as leaders, because I need to recognize if I treat an anti-fragile system fragilely, I'm doing nothing but causing it harm. I want you to think for a moment of a leader who doesn't know how to hold their people accountable. They're always wanting to be liked by everybody. They're always wanting to make sure that everybody's understood, and they're always so nice and so patient, but they can never make hard decisions. We all know what that script is going to look like in the long run. They're going to end up having employees that take advantage of them. They're going to have employees that don't fear any consequences of not performing effectively, and they're going to pay a price because they're treating an anti-fragile system, which is a human relationship, very fragilely. So in other words, we need to embrace the stress of the difficulties of the people around us. Believe it or not, I actually, as tough as it is sometimes, I want to be around difficult people. Right? Brittany's running this organization. Brittany's got to work with all kinds of people, all kinds of donors, all kinds of employees. She needs to be around difficult people because those are the people that are going to make her better. Those are the people that are going to make her able to adapt and grow her leadership skills. And that's true for every leader. So as a young professional, you've got to be able to not avoid difficult people, not avoid difficult situations, but actually put yourself in that position and recognize that now something can happen that could never have happened before. And the reason is because that is an anti-fragile system that creates an ability for you to grow in a way that you've never grown before, right? And this is a principle that as young leaders, we need to really, really stress in our lives. And I say that because we today live in a society that is more stress avoidant than ever before. We're doing everything we can to not deal with the stress. We're trying to create stress-free work zones. And there could be nothing worse than doing that. You've got to create environments where you're stretching yourself and challenging yourself. Listen, if you're a young professional, let me give you some advice that I've given many, many people in the past, and that is this. You ought to challenge yourself to begin speaking publicly at industry-related events and conferences and seminars. You need to join industry-related events. You need to volunteer to be a speaker and begin putting yourself in that position of doing what to many people is one of the most frightening things there is to do. And when you begin to do that, I promise you, you are going to feel a strength. You're going to feel not just a resilience, but a difference in your life that you have never felt before because you have overcome your fear. You know, one of the quotes that I use, if you ever go to my website, you'll see it's on the very front page of my website. I try to live my life as best I can out of this quote, and it goes like this. It's by Andre Guide. And what he says is, in order to discover new lands, one must consent to lose sight of the shore. In order to discover new lands, one must consent to lose sight of the shore. And do you know what I think the most important word is in that entire quote? It's the word consent. That we have to be men and women and leaders who make the choice to move away from what's comfortable, to move away from what's safe, to move away from the shore. And as we move away from it, only then do we have a real chance at discovering new lands and new opportunities and new skills and new people that are going to give us new avenues for life. You know, when I've had the chance to visit with Brittany and just hear her story, one of the things I've admired so much about Brittany is all the time that she stretched herself to do something that she had no idea how it would turn out, but she believed in what was possible. And she pushed herself out there. And anybody that knows Brittany, they're going to say the same thing. This is a young woman and a leader who just goes for it. And as a result of that, she's been able to do such remarkable things with Sky High for Kids and everything else that she does in her life. And anybody that we respect as a leader, I will promise you, they as a way of life do not avoid the stress. They lean into the stress, which leads me into one more concept as we wind down our last few minutes together. And it's a Greek word, it's a Greek concept that is absolutely critical. And I shared it in the name of the podcast that we started. It's the word arete, A-R-E-T-E. And in Greek, Aristotle developed this word, and this word is the word that means excellence. And it's not just, oh, you did a good job. It's excellence that you are fulfilling your capacity. That when something begins to fulfill its capacity and its potential, it approaches arete. And in every area of our lives, whether that's our financial lives, our health, our spiritual lives, our professional lives, it doesn't matter what area of our life it is, we want to make sure that we're always raising the bar a little bit more to fulfill our capacity. Because there's another word that's not a good word. And it's a word that comes out of Latin. And it's a funny word. And it's the word in Latin that is mediocre. We get the word mediocre. And it literally in Latin means middle of the mountain. And this is a word that was developed to describe a person who would look at the top of a mountain and say, I want to get to the top. They get to the middle of the mountain. They stop, they look out over the view, and guess what they say? They say, this is good enough. That's what they say. And the mediocre person is that person who's always going to stop in the middle. They're not going to go for the top. They're not going to try to be the best that they're capable of being. So I want to challenge all of you out there, all of you young professionals, and even some of you who might be kind of older into your career. I want to challenge you to ask yourself, what does arete, what does the pursuit of excellence to your capacity look like in your life? What are you reading right now? What are you doing to make yourself better? What are you stretching yourself towards doing? How are you moving into stress and challenges to allow that system in a very anti-fragile way to make you the best that you're capable of being? So these are hard times. These are difficult times. We've been in it now for about 8 to 10 weeks. Things are slowly beginning to open up. Things are starting to move a little bit. But during this period of time, ask yourself this question. What did I do during this period of time that I didn't think I had time to do in the past that I did that began to make me better and sharper and even more effective as a person, as a man, as a woman, and as a leader? And when you can begin to think about things that you can do that make you better, these are those skills, these are those habits. They're going to make you the best and will take you the farthest that you can possibly go. If you're managing a team, I cannot think of a better category for you to think about for your team than to ask yourself, how am I developing a culture where my people are pursuing excellence every single day? What systems am I setting in place to give them every chance to be the most effective that they can be? So take a little inventory and ask yourself, what has my life looked like? You know, early on in my life, I took the path of least resistance. Until I was 21 years of age, I lived a mediocre life. My grades showed it, my discipline showed it, my bad habits showed it, and I lived a miserable, unaccomplished life all the way till my senior year in college, until a mentor who happened to work for McKinsey and Associates. He was 27 years old. He came into my life, began to mentor me, and he radically changed my mindset. And he began to challenge me to begin pursuing excellence in every area of my life. And as a result of that, it is probably the greatest gift a person has ever given me, is the gift of a mindset for growth. And that said, last thing, I heard it said once, that the greatest discovery human beings have ever made was the discovery of delayed gratification. That when a person can be willing to do the work now and not see the results and the return now, but see it later, and they can begin learning to live that kind of a life, they're going to receive the dividends and the outcomes of a life that will absolutely blow them away. It will be extraordinary. But when you're always living for the immediate gratification of where's the gain, where's the return now, there is no way you will ever achieve arete and excellence in your life. So let's pursue the anti-fragile life. Let's allow stress to develop us and grow us and make us the best that we can possibly be.
I love that. Stress is one of, the most powerful things in anybody's life, and you can either use it in a positive manner, or you can allow it to consume you and it'd be a negative thing. I feed off of stress. It like keeps me going and going, but you don't hear what you just said very often, Walter. You hear everyone saying work-life balance, de-stress, get into another environment or make these changes to not allow so many things to go on in your life. And I've always been kind of like, how? What? Why?
Absolutely. How many times, Brittany, have you heard somebody say, man, I don't enjoy working for my boss. I think I want to go somewhere else.
I mean,
right?
A lot. Yeah.
Rather than say, gosh, my boss is difficult. I'm going to take this opportunity to become the best that I can be because of how difficult it is, because I'm not going to work for them forever. So I'm going to go and make the most of it. But too many people say, I'm leaving that company, I'm leaving that boss, I'm leaving that department, because they don't want to be around the challenges and the stress.
They don't want to be around the challenges. That's what I love. They don't want to be around the challenges. So how can you differentiate yourself in these times? Speaking to the salespeople out there, as a salesperson or anyone in business development, in order to get kind of an ear of, prospect when they have this pandemic to deal with. So, salespeople and people that are out and about, such as myself, donor development every day, it has just been completely halted.
Yeah.
How can we differentiate ourselves during these times? How can we continue to stand out and actually do our job?
That's a great question. NASCAR, as everybody saw in the news, I think they're about to, or they already had their race. Have they had it yet? Their first race?
Yeah, right. Didn't somebody win?
I think so. Either way, I don't follow NASCAR, but I do know that they made the big announcement that they were going to have their first race, obviously without fans in the stands. But I've got this model called the REV model, Brittany, that I use, and I've taught it, and I've helped people through this COVID time. It's this idea of revving your engines, getting ready for when the green light hits and we're back out there again working. What is your REV? And that is basically, here are the three things I tell people. Number one, take advantage of this time, building your relationships with people. Make sure you're Zooming people. Make sure you're making phone calls, talking to people. Build your relationships during this time. The E stands for exposure. You've got to increase your exposure. This is the time to connect with people, get out there, get out on LinkedIn, get out on social media, create some exposure. And finally, you need to increase your value. You need to increase your own value, and you need to increase the value in others by helping them to succeed. And maybe, like Brittany, look, one of the things we did together is, I try to make some introductions for some people during this time. Yep. And whether they pan out or they don't pan out, that's just my way of just trying to increase some value in some people's lives during this time, right?
Right. And thank you for that. Been amazing to just try to get in touch or to work with these people, but just to have that exposure. And And Walter, you just hit the nail on the head. Be ready for when we get that green light. And so one of my personal rocks for the quarter, which just so happened to turn out to be during COVID, was to call, physically pick up the phone and call our top 50 donors just to check in. And what a time, if ever, to do that, so you can stay connected. And over communicating with my team. I mean, we meet 3 days a week on Zoom. I think everybody's probably like, how many times can we talk about our work, and life positives for the day, because you heard it 2 days ago, but you can't communicate enough right now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Those 50 people that you called would have been much more difficult before all this happened, right? Because you had so
Right.
much going on. So what a great example right there, Brittany, of taking this time and going, what can I do that I typically would not be able to do? And hey, I'm going to call our top 50 donors.
Yep.
Think about that. But do you know what's really tragic though, Brittany? Think about how many salespeople during this time around the country have not called all of their top people to check in, haven't tried to provide value for them, haven't done those things to try to make it be front of mind, to them. And, it's to their loss in the long run, because the people who have made the most of this time are the people who in the long run are going to get rewarded, in my opinion.
No, that's excellent. I mean, I just love rev up your engines, be ready for that green light. Like I'm picturing a caution. I mean, I'm picturing the light right on the street,
Yeah.
and it's so true. And, it was very easy to fall into this slump during quarantine. In fact, I did it myself more on the personal side when it came to health and fitness. And, I think just getting up and not getting ready, like throwing on you have your pajamas on or your robe, and you get behind that computer or you get on the phone all day. It's just so easy to work in that. Like it was just the environment that I created for myself. And so I remember a couple of weeks ago, I woke up and I was like, this has got to stop. I've got to get back into my normal routine and be more disciplined about how I'm just waking up and starting my day. Not that I wasn't doing my work. It was just different. And I could tell the difference when I started, to pick up a better routine and get back to what I call a normal day. And so I just love it. I love the green light. I think it's important for everybody to just be ready and to do as much as you can right now to what I've been saying is filling in the gaps, because you don't have time to do all that stuff, but now you do.
Yeah.
So another question from some of our folks, to the young, inspiring leaders out there, what should be the biggest lesson learned through these times to stick with us through our career? What would be one of the biggest lessons learned in your opinion?
For young people?
Yeah, for young, inspiring leaders. So maybe these are not in leadership positions yet, but that's
Yeah.
the goal of theirs.
Yeah, I would say that one of the most important things for somebody at that stage of their career right now is that you have got to really actively seek a growth mindset, which means you've got to actively ask for feedback. You got to ask for people to give you feedback about, not just what are your strengths, but what are the areas that you need to keep working on. You need to be okay with feedback. You've got to challenge yourself to create the infrastructure for leadership. Because you know this, Brady, you've been around long enough to know that when you see somebody in their 40s and 50s and even 60s who never built the infrastructure inside of themselves to be able to receive feedback, to be able to hear constructive criticism from people, right? It's painful to watch a grown person who's in a leadership position that nobody can go and give them feedback. So I would tell young, aspiring leaders, begin building a mindset of growth, seeking feedback from people. Read, listen, Brittany knows I say this all the time. Read, read, read. You cannot do life just with one brain. Get inside the brains of dozens of people who are much smarter than all of us, who have written amazing books, and just begin learning. Watch YouTube videos, watch lectures. Don't just watch funny videos. Watch things that are going to grow your mind and develop you as a thinker so that you stand out in a few years because you think better than your peers.
You hit the nail on the head, and I have been reading for 15 minutes a day, Walter. You'll
Have
be
you?
so proud. Yes, I started the book, The Power of the Positive No, like months ago, put it down after 2 pages, and then I picked it back up because that has been a challenge of mine from you. And I can see the difference already, whether it's, like you said, whether it's a podcast or watching TED Talks or just educating yourself on anything, there is something powerful about reading and reading the words. And to be honest, I mean, everybody knows I'm very, honest about this, but vocabulary is tough for me, and down to just spelling a word. So that's helped me because I highlight in the book, etc. But do you have time for a couple more questions?
Yeah, sure. You bet. Let's do it.
Okay. So if someone were to find themselves in a position to where they have been let go due to the reductions in force, how would you suggest going about searching for a new job or even a new career path when so few companies are hiring? And I mean, wow, what a question, right? This is a hard one, but I mean, so many of our personal friends, and I bet you people watching now have unfortunately been laid off or furloughed. And so what do you think, or what would you advise, if anything, or what experience have you maybe been through?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to recommend a guy named Bob Bodine wrote a book a number of years ago called The Power of Who, and it's fantastic. And here's the principle, and it goes right to the heart of your question, and that is this. Every one of us have a who, and the who are the people in your life that are your champions. They are the ones that are for you. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how little we use the resources of our who. We don't call them. We're not honest with them. We're not, listen, what you need to do is make a list of your who. List those 8, 10, 12, however many people are your advocates, are in your corner, that might be in other industries, that might be at other companies. You need to say to them, listen, I just got let go. I'm desperate to find something. Can you help me? That's what you got to say. Not, hey, if you hear of something, let me know. You need to say, can you help me?
Can you help me?
That's it.
Help me.
Yeah, and people, who's going to say no, right? People are going to say, gosh, yes. I mean, they're going to hear it. They're going to want to help you. You'd be amazed when you're that direct with people that already believe in you. When you say, can you help me? You'd be amazed the lengths that people will go to help you. So that's the advice I'd give.
Every mentor I've ever had, it's been, people that I knew I could trust and that were in my corner. And then if I picked up the phone and I needed to ask these types of questions, they're going to help you. I mean, that's your who, but you have to stay in touch with them, and you have to, right, use that. So I love that. And I like just the direct question. It's a call to action. Will you help me? So, okay. Can you give some pointers on how to keep a team morale high while these times are uncertain?
Yeah, that's great.
It says, just like, that's the first question. Let's go with that first. So team morale, any pointers?
Yeah. Well, look, morale, we know this from research. Morale is intrinsically linked to meaning. So I, as a leader, need to make sure that I'm continuing to demonstrate the value of what we're doing to my team, so they realize that it's what we're doing is significant. And even though it might be on hold right now, or it might be slowed down, I need to be able to tap into the meaningfulness and the significance of the work that we're doing. You, of all people, would know that, Brittany, in terms of what you're doing. Everybody who has a job, there is a significance to that job, and as leaders, we've got to champion the significance of that job so people feel good about the kind of work that they've chosen to do. So that's number one. Number two, I think it's important that you speak hope into your people. You've got to speak hope. You've got to speak, hey, listen, we're going to get through this. And when things start turning around, here are the opportunities that we're going to be able to have. One of the things you do, Brittany, that's terrific, is you do a great job of creating these contingency plans. It's like, here's
scenarios.
Yeah, all the scenarios. I love that, because what that means is your people know that you're thinking ahead for them, and you're bringing them into that, and you give them hope, because it's not just, oh, I hope, like I'm crossing my fingers. It's hope like we're really thinking about real contingencies and options out there, and what can we do to make sure that we make the most of this time. So that's what I would encourage leaders to be able to do. Speak significance and meaning into people's lives and give them hope. Keep reinforcing hope to them.
I love it. Thank you, Walter. And then last one, mental health. Any pointers on how to keep your mind healthy during this time? Like I said, I was definitely subject to kind of falling into really a rut, just I just wasn't in a healthy routine, just pounding out work, but just not in my normal routine, and it affected me, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and
Well,
that's
look,
too for people that maybe are just downright scared of what's going on right now, right?
yeah. Well, one thing we need to realize is, 90% of the serotonin that's generated in your body is generated in your gut. Most people don't know that. 90%. Most people think it's released from the brain. 90% of all the serotonin, which serotonin that regulates your mood, your happiness, your depression. It's one of the most powerful chemicals in the body for mood regulation. So think about this. If that's true that 90% of it is in the gut, and now I'm going through circumstances in our society, in our country right now that are challenging. I need more than ever to make sure I'm taking care of me, taking care of my body, taking care of my stomach. I need to make sure I'm not over drinking. I need to make sure I'm eating healthier foods. I need to make sure that I'm walking or running or exercising. I need to take time to meditate, to pray, to just find some solitude. I need to take care of my body because that's where I'm going to be able to have my body working for me and not against me.
Wow. In your gut.
Amazing. Yes. I didn't know that till recently. I was studying, I was reading on immunology actually. And as I was studying about it, I found out that 90% of all your serotonin comes from your gut.
Wow. So
Yeah.
important. Health and fitness, or just moving around in general. But, well, Walter, we are extremely grateful to have you tonight and to have you as our very first YPO speaker. You are phenomenal. We have learned so much. I didn't get to take notes myself, but I'm going to go back and watch it again so I can get another free session of your coaching. It was really good. And I just want to thank all of our young professionals, board members at Sky High for Kids, Kobe Thomas, our president, leading the way. Sydney Maffridge Kearns is our vice president, and for everyone who helped bring the speaker series together. We really cannot wait to do this in person because we really think it's going to be a phenomenal education session, and just really something good to bring impact at Sky High for Kids and childhood cancer together with some really inspirational leaders. And Walter, we're going to ask you to come back for a panel at the end of the year with several leaders, and we'd love to have you back. And just super proud of everybody. Thank you, YP team, for pulling this together. And Walter, we can't wait to hear from you again soon. Thank you for your wisdom.
Thank you, Brittany. It's been a lot of fun with you guys.
Thank you. Have a great evening. Stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you soon.